Hey guys, VaulSC here, hope that you're doing well. Let's take a look at a game of Conquest, The Last Argument. This one is with the latest patch, the latest update that I haven't really had time to make a video about, but it was a good update. I was really happy with a lot of the changes they made. Continuing with the much-needed trend of nerfing the powerful stuff and buffing some of the weaker stuff, and honestly, this is the reason why I play Conquest from Parabellum as opposed to any other wargame, is that they seem to be supporting the game in the right way. Cannot state that enough. Still plenty that needs to be fixed, still plenty to do, but let's just enjoy what has been done so far. 100 Kingdoms, we'll talk about that in a second, but mostly Wadroon and Euroni and Sorcerer King, some Nord stuff, really getting the changes, and Squires. This game that I'm going to be talking about today is between 100 Kingdoms and Dweghom. Dweghom, of course, next to get updated. They haven't really had the love yet. They are going to get a new character and a couple of new brute units, which I'll talk about some other time. They look interesting, but I think that their final form will yet to be determined. We've seen a bit of a preview of them, and that's it. So this game features the latest and greatest version of the 100 Kingdoms against the old style of Dweghom. So that's what we are with. Let's move straight into it, and we'll talk about my list featuring just a couple of little changes with the new patch. Main idea here is that the Noble Lord, of course, this is feudal theism, my favorite kind of 100 Kingdoms. I think that feudal and Imperials is the best combo, but my favorite combo, my most enjoyed combo, is the feudal theism. So as you guys know, I've assembled 8 Household Guard recently. They've become better with the Armsmaster going down in cost, so that's a great little buff. But what we're trying out today is the new Armor of Dominion. I really love this new item. It's 30 points, and the big difference is that it's just much cleaner wording in the sense that you don't have to have your opponent's stands touching your character. It's the entire regiment that switches off Cleave, AP, and Smite. Now, the other big part of this change is that it includes the switching off of AP. So there being no wording about contact, meaning that if you shoot at my unit, you don't get armor piercing. And that, my friends, is what I really wanted for my Household Guard all this time. The thing about the Household Guard is that they don't have hardened naturally, and the Armsmaster doesn't give it to them, so you've really got to have an Imperial Officer nearby to grant hardened, and I'm not running an Imperial Officer in this list, so you've got 8 Household Guard there, which are an amazing investment. They're going to get the benefit of Inimitable and the Blessed from the Theist Priest Supremacy, and the Speed from the Archangel being nearby, and the Feudal rerolls of 6s. They've got all of these layers of buffs on them. But when you shoot at them, you don't really get much there. There's just defense 3 and that's it. But with the Noble Lord's Armor of Dominion, they at least turn off all of the AP from your opponent blasting them with Ballistae and Fireforged and Hellbringer Drakes and obviously Caryatids and you name it. Other 100 Kingdoms player with masses of, Hunter Cadre and crossbows, and the Euroni with their little birdmen. It's just a great item if you are running a lot of Household Guard, which I am. If you are playing Men-at-Arms, obviously I've got a Men-at-Arms regiment elsewhere in my list. I like to think of this as the Rob Shepherd loadout. It's very effective for a reason. Caledburn, Eccentric fighting style on the Noble Lord with Weaponmaster, Graceful, Combatant. It's just an absolute beatstick for a reasonable amount of points, and the Men-at-Arms is just the cheapest way that you can protect them and still get all of the faction buffs and feudal rerolls and everything on there. But because this is a hardened 1 from the seasoned veteran at just 15 points, there's no sense in putting Armor of Dominion on top of that. It's just a bit redundant. But over here, it makes much more sense because you've got a bigger unit to protect. They have no other way of getting hardened, and you want to be able to deliver the bulk of these guys to the objective and then start whacking. And that's where Armor of Dominion just shines. And obviously, if you can ever get it into combat with like a Siege Breaker or something like that, that's otherwise going to shred you, it just gets tremendous value. But this is an item which I think is is really relevant to the faction now. So well done to Corvus Belli. Still a habit. Well done to Parabellum. I can't give any props to Corvus Belli right now. They're not doing that well. Okay, so Theist Priest is the dynastic ally. I'm going to assemble some militia bowmen and put them in his warband so he can just join them for the minimum and be there as a support for the just scoring and popping out the occasional holy fire and having the one supremacy turn of blessed. But since I haven't done that yet, we're going to be running this 6 militia with Elysian Fragment. It's not terrible. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I still like it. You don't pay that much points for him. He can still score quite well. He bullies other light units, and the militia protect him a little bit longer so he can use Holy Fire. And of course, if your opponent just stands in front of your regiment and lets you charge them, then you can actually smoke them pretty badly with the Elysian Fragment, given that you've got your support 3 men at the back. Blessed allows them to hit, Cleave 3 allows them to chop through, and you're fine. New Archangel, obviously the sword got buffed, nobody cares. The defense 4 is the clutch thing there. I'm just not interested in the sword version at all, despite it being a lot better than it was. Defense 4 is just so much more important for keeping your monster alive, because at the end of the day, it's partly about the Archangel just surviving and attacking, but partly about surviving and granting the buff to nearby regiments to get the extra speed. So the other Noble Lord, of course, another bubble of rerolls nearby, and we just talked about how powerful Caledburn is, and then the Mage. I still like School of Water because she's there to back up this main Household Guard regiment. On to my opponent's regiments and lists here. We've got 4 characters and 8 regiments. That's all fine and good. We're going for the Tempered Creed, of course, just a stock standard way of playing Dweghom. This is his army collection that he's got together. He's almost playing with 100% of his own models. I'm still loaning some of the initiates to him. Ironclad Drake, obviously a real goodie, worth taking the rag for. And the only upgrade we've really got here is the Flaming Oratory on the Kerouig and the Sorcerer with Graft the Fire, both really solid upgrades. But very keen to see what they do with the rework for Dweghom. They have been doing very well with the reworks, I must say. Even the semi-botched rework of Wadroon has partly been rolled back, and they're actually trying some different things with Wadroon. Wadroon are in a better spot now. I don't consider them to be completely fixed, but they're definitely more interesting than they were before, so we'll see a bit more out of me on TTS with Wadroon. For now, though, let's dive into this game where we're playing Breakout. This is the one where each of us has an objective touching that central circle, and you have to destroy your opponent's objective to be able to score from the middle. And the side zones are worth more at the beginning and the end of the game, but during the mid-game, it's the central objective that is worth more, as far as I can recall. At the end of rounds 5 to 8... yeah, it's the center one in the mid-game. And there's no points for killing... there's 2 points for the Warlord, and that's it. Okay, there you go. So, here is our battlefield. We've got 3 zones. Note that middle zone is slightly smaller just because I ran out of plastic templates to count as the zone. So we used a small one that just measured out the objective markers to place them where they need to be. So you can see that there are 3 forests. They have obscuring and hindering, etc., size 2. And then the 2 objectives there. We've got a couple of hills and the tower and the green trees with the green canopy there. They are impassable. So I've got quite a few lights here. We're going to go for the Theist Priest as an auto pick because he wants to get on for scoring in turn 2, and then rolling for the Mercenary Mage plus Mercenaries on their own plus Squires. We've got 2 out of 3 of that, so that means we're going to activate as follows, just missing 1 Mercenary Crossbow regiment to start us off. So opponent bringing on the Dweghom Ballistae. Just love the paint scheme there. And the Fireforged, and that is it for his 2 regiments. I'm obviously stalling for time with my characters being the first cards. I get to see where his guys are. So on my left flank, I can see his Berserkers. On my right, I can see his Ballistae. So bringing on the Squires opposite the Ballistae. My camera's in the way of them there. The cool thing about the Squires is that because they're in the Warlord's warband of the Noble Lord, they get Veteran for free, and Veteran gives them Tenacious 2 against shooting, which means that it's going to be very difficult for the Ballistae to work their way through them. The plan here is just to go directly into combat with the Ballistae and provide a bit of a front line against this this zone here, and then we're going to sneak up behind the Squires with the Priest unit and score. As for the Berserkers, though, we know that they're going to be camping on that zone. We know that Rancor is going to be going on them with the Ardent Kerowig, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring the Mage opposite them to shoot at them, but more importantly, the Household Guard are going to go to the left of the Mage, and because the Flame Berserkers are just such a dead giveaway for the presence of the Kerowig, because we know that he's going to be casting Rancor on them, therefore we know there's going to be a big block of Initiates on this flank. We want to move in with the Household Guard to combat that, knowing that the Household Guard are easily going to be able to wipe out the Berserkers and the Initiates without breaking a sweat, and I can heal them back to full with the Mage, so that is why she's positioned here. The other thing is we expect the Hellbringer Drake and Sorcerer to be nearby to the Initiates to protect the Drake, and the Hellbringer and the Sorcerer are terrible against the Household Guard, again because of Armor of Dominion, because it gets rid of AP, and the spell, the Fireball, has AP, so you really just take the teeth out of that most powerful Dweghom spell, which I just find to be amazing. Just such a really good item. So over here, as promised, the Priest just coming in behind the Squires just to sneak up on that objective after they run the Ballistae out of town. So that's what the battlefield looks like after one turn of play. You can see Flame Berserkers left, Ballistae on my right, and then, of course, my Mage on the left, the other two regiments on my right. Let's carry on. So coming in at turn 2, we're going to go auto pick for the Noble Lord and bringing in the Halberdiers. And we've got one more light unit coming in for the other mercenaries, but the other rolls for other medium units were failed. I just completely whiffed them, so nothing else for medium this turn. All right, Ballistae moving up, attempting to shoot the Squires, pitifully inflicting 1 wound only, thanks to all the Tenacious, just rubbing everything off. Over here, the Priest is casting a spell onto the Squires just to give them the additional speed from Divine Purpose. Now, when I cast this, I think that it should not have worked for some reason. I think I found out later that there was some reason why I couldn't cast it. Probably infantry only or something like that. What does it say here? Oh yeah, because it's a range self ability. This used to be having a range back in the day, but now you have to cast it on yourself. So this shouldn't have really been in play, but it didn't actually matter because the Squires would have been in range anyway. So Fireforged moving on through the middle of the table. This is with the Tempered Sorcerer, not the Tempered Sorcerer, the Tempered Steelshaper, I meant to say. They are coming in opposite this objective, which is one that they need to destroy to be able to capture from the middle zone. On the left here, the Flame Berserkers, as predicted, just moving up to capture this zone with the command stand touching the bubble here, and they're going to be picking up Rancor. So, predictably, my Mage pulls out the crossbows, they go and shooting at them, inflict like a couple of wounds, but nothing too serious. So then, as we all expected, the Initiates come plodding on in with the Kerowig behind them, casting Rancor on them, picking up, some Elemental Potency tokens, and, there we are. My other unit of crossbows coming into this forest here with the intention of firing at one of the objectives in the center as well. Good to have at least one regiment just plugging away at it to pick up the points and to free it up for capture later on in the day. And these guys, being in the forest, are going to be protected from a lot of the shooting thanks to the obscuring effect of the terrain. And the Turtle, my favorite regiment, just to pick up out of the box, and you sort of carefully move it over to the table, making sure not to spill all of your models everywhere. The models are blue tacked down to their stands, and they are pretty heavy, so it just feels so cool to just chug it onto the table and just, you just feel so intimidating with that massive block of guys there. It's just amazing. Okay, so we've got a march charge into the Ballistae. The Ballistae have already loosed their volley of bolts, so this is just basically a free hit here. Well, not actually a clash, it's just a march charge. The impact hits do nothing, and then for the rest of the game, it's just going to be a slugfest between these two regiments. But the zone will be free for me to take, and that's why they're here. Speaking of which, the Priest. Double marching onto the zone, of course. Relentless Drills means that you can score if you're getting the morale bonus from your extra stands, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. So zoom out to the end of turn 2, you can see on the right-hand side I'm scoring from the right-hand zone, but on the left-hand zone my opponent is scoring, so we're both picking up equal number of points. Completely tied on the score here. So, turn 3, we are auto-picking the Archangel because it's my one and only heavy, but we're going to be bringing it on second last card, my final card with the Household Guard. We've got to wait for everything to come near to me rather than moving the Household Guard and giving them free hits onto them. I don't really want to just eat a charge from the Flame Berserkers. We need to wait a bit for that. So, initially we're going with the Squires and the Mercenaries and everything else, and then moving on after that. So, Squires against crossbows for the first order of business. Just a bit of damage here, inflicting enough wounds to cause maybe one stand of casualties onto them. And, of course, the Ballistae attacking back, prodding them with the bayonets to try and get a little bit of counter damage. Over here, another barrage from the Mercenary Crossbowmen onto the Flame Berserkers. Still not achieving a lot of damage here, but just picking away at them a little bit. My opponent continuing to move forward with his Fireforged, but just not quite getting in range because it turns out that he's going after this one on the left here. You can see the one that he's touching with his hand is the one that he's attempting to destroy, and you've got to be in effective range to take any damage onto it, and that unfortunately wasn't the case from here. So the Flame Berserkers, who have actually lost a stand against the troops here, have a decision to make. And I told him I wasn't actually really sure what the best play is. One thing you could do is to completely back up with the Flame Berserkers, knowing that your opponent has just committed a massive contingent of Halberdiers there. There's no way you're winning against that. What you can do is just completely pull back and just wait out the game until you got reinforcements and try and box them in with like 4 regiments at a time. Another thing you can do is just march charge into one of these regiments and just slow them down. You could also try and go for the long bomb charge into the crossbows and get some damage onto them. That would have been a good play. But what we're ultimately doing here is we're going just to set them up in such a way that I can't move on to the objective this turn. This is going to be a free kill on the Berserkers at the end of this turn when the Halberdiers activate, but they are not going to score, so he'll get a small lead on the points there. Over the side, we've got the Priest, who doesn't really need to do anything, just chilling, really. And over here, we've got the Initiates moving onto the zone. You can see on the left there that they have arrived, and they're going to be able to score, and the Flame Berserkers prevent my guys from getting onto that position. So over here, we've got some more shots going down onto the objective in the center, picking off a wound from it. And the Militia repositioning. Now, this is a bit of a curious play from me. I think retrospectively this is a mistake from me. What I've done here is I'm just setting up for a situation where if the Fireforged, who are on the opposite side of that tree there, if they move a bit further forward and shoot at me, I don't really want them hitting my flank, because that means I don't get to use the shield. But the thing is that I'm a piercing 2, so it's not going to matter either way. So regardless of which direction I'm getting shot at, I'm never going to get saves against the Fireforged. So there's really no sense in doing that. Unless you're concerned about the character's weapon, because he's got a gun that does not have AP, or at least doesn't have AP2 as far as I know. So it doesn't really make a big difference. And on the other hand here, I'm actually exposing my flank a little bit to the right-hand side. So one play that he can make is to double march his Ironclad Drake on the board from this point in time, and then the following turn, if he wins the Supremacy roll, he is just going to be able to charge me in the flank, which is going to do additional damage because I'm having to re-roll successful morale checks. So this is just an error by me. It is just a mistake. Unfortunate. Now, Hellbringer Drake has a tough decision to make. This is the other Drake. Wants to stay in range of the Initiates, and that's why you can see in the photograph he's measuring the range to the Initiates to make sure that they can use the Elemental Potency tokens. Doesn't want to come on completely on the right-hand side of the board because he knows that this character and this dragon are going to be completely ineffectual against the Household Guard because of that beautiful Armor of Dominion. Whereas in the center, you can pick away at my Mage or the other crossbows or the Knights when they show up, or the Men-at-Arms, and there's different stuff that he can do, and he can move towards the zone, or he can reposition. So this is not a bad spot for him to be in. So then the boys, the men-at-arms with Hardened from the seasoned veteran with the Noble Lord Caledburn on the right-hand side of the regiment. They're just going to double march up here towards the middle of the battlefield, just opposite those Fireforged in the background, but not too close to the Warlord. I just don't want to get fireballed too early in the piece. But the idea is to try and move up quickly enough that I can get into combat with the Fireforged and beat them up with the Caledburn. These guys, having Hardened 1, will help them a little bit against the Fireforged guns as well. There's another photo of the front where you can see my conversion of my Noble Lord, just using some parts from the bits box. Now, the beautiful Archangel, if you guys haven't already seen my video describing how this was built, go check it out. This is a construction made from various different materials and a 3D printed Chaos Knight and some Sakai, but after much deliberation, I decided to put the Archangel right here behind the crossbows. Thinking is that I can actually march charge into the Fireforged and beat them up with the help of the swordsman, but another play that I can potentially make is use the sheer speed of the Archangel to march charge into the Sorcerer later, which will slow it down and prevent it from targeting other things with its fireball. And because the Archangel is tanky, I might be able to tie him up for a couple of crucial turns where I don't want to just have units completely wiped off the table from his double spell. So that's why I'm here, and also being in the forest helps it against the inevitable shooting as well. So that's why we've deployed it here. I feel like going on the left-hand side is a bit overkill because the Household Guard are really going to be fine on that flank, and going on to the right-hand side is just a bit more of an overcommitment because if he doesn't deploy anything else there, the Theist Priest is going to be perfectly fine. And if he does deploy more stuff there, then he's going to be overcommitting to deal with just, you know, a throwaway regiment, so to speak. So that is the thinking behind this positioning. Over here, we have the Household Guard at the end of turn 3, charging the Flame Berserkers and deleting them. Didn't even need a roll for it. My opponent just took them off the board. Just didn't even want to see it. So this is the end of turn 3. You can see on the right-hand flank, I'm scoring with my Priest, and I'm going to continue scoring for the rest of the game unless he deploys other stuff there. He's got 3 other things that he can deploy on that side, either the second Fireforged, Ironclad Drake, or the Rag and the Initiates, or just some combination of those 3. But if he does that, if he commits too heavily, I'm going to win on the left-hand flank, and I might even be able to swamp him in the middle. So he's got to be careful about where he puts everything. So yeah, feeling confident, but my opponent still has a few more deployments yet to come. Let's go to turn 4. By the way, scoring completely even at this point. He's continually scoring left-hand flank. I'm scoring on the right-hand flank. The middle is locked up because of the objectives. So turn 4, we're going with the Mounted Squires first, followed by the Mage and just Mercenaries, and just like wasting time with characters. And at the very end of the turn, that's where we're going to show up with the Knights, activate the Archangel, and then bust up his Initiates with my Household Guard, if I can make it there. So to begin with, again, trading blows. It's the Squires against the Ballistae. We've knocked off one stand. He fights back. He kills one of my stands, and it's just a bit of a slugfest here. So he then brings in his Fireforged to shoot at the Mounted Squires, but yet again, that tenacious 2 against shooting is clutch. It's the reason why I take Squires, because you get free veteran from them in the feudal warlords warband. Otherwise, Squires aren't that good, but for the tenacious, if you can find a use for that, if they can soak up that kind of damage, they are actually quite useful. So this is a situation where opponent just goes for it anyway, and it just doesn't really work out. But where else could he really realistically have put this regiment? I think the only other option really is to go towards the center and have both units of Fireforged supporting each other, so that when one of them gets attacked by an Archangel, the other regiment is firing at point-blank range, or if they get attacked by the men-at-arms, same sort of situation, but they are going after the Squires here. So on this side, the Mage and the crossbows just double march backwards and do nothing else. And that's the only thing that they choose to do. And the reason for that is because they are under such a severe threat from that Hellbringer. If the Hellbringer moves into position, shoots at them, and throws 2 spells at them, even with spell interference, it's going to be problematic. In fact, the Mage here is actually casting the spell that makes enemy spells more difficult to cast, just because I know that's going to be such a problem. Over here, crossbows continuing to shoot at the other objective in the center, so that's what's happening there. And his character is actually out of range because I've moved back with my mage, and he actually made the mistake of activating the character on the dragon before the dragon, which is not what you want to do. You want to get the dragon into position first, then throw the spells out, so that didn't quite work for him. So with that in mind, we're now double marching up with the men-at-arms so we can get a charge onto the Fireforged next turn. This is hopefully going to entice him into shooting me. The men-at-arms don't care that much about the Fireforged shooting. They've got hardened 1, and they've got enough numbers there that they're going to be able to make it into combat. And even if I've only got 2 or 3 stands left, once I do make it into combat, Caledburn is going to start to even up that trade for me quite well. So with that in mind, my opponent unleashing a volley of death here, a bit of a barrage from the Fireforge into the men-at-arms and picking off like 1.5 stands worth of guys. Now, coming back to this side of the battlefield, I realized how badly I'd positioned the Theist priest, so I decided to reform, make a big front line of 4 guys, and just sit them facing my opponent's deployment zone, thinking that if my opponent brings in an Ironclad Drake here, like if he runs them past the into this gap between the edge of the table and the Mount of Squires, if he comes at me on a full frontal, I think he'd probably just kill the militia anyway, but having them positioned like this increases the likelihood I might survive for like 1 turn just to hold them off for a little bit and then scratch up the paint a little bit with a Elysian Fragment around. So that's why I wanted to position them that way. Over here, the Ballistae down to just 1 last stand. They are picking off 1 stand of Squires as well, but these guys, unfortunately, are up against the Tenacious 2 against shooting, and then the fast-moving Squires, and then the close combat. So, not long for this world. Then the Knights. So, the Knights, importantly, are going to be making a sacrifice for the greater good this game. They're going to be going dead center. They aren't needed on the left-hand flank because the Household Guards have got that sewn up. They aren't needed on the right-hand flank because my opponent just hasn't committed anything else there. But in the center of the table, I am at risk of being overwhelmed by the Sorcerer, who's realistically the most dangerous thing in my opponent's army. They've got defense 4, so they can take a little bit of punishment from the guns. Not that much punishment, but a little bit. And if they can make it into close combat with that Drake, they will delay him for a little bit. They won't last long against the spells, but they'll delay a little bit. The Fireforged are also a problem, but they are there as a distraction. They became more expensive recently, which is kind of annoying, but probably justified just since they're so good. But I still find that they're worth it in some situations, and we're going to just chuck them here. I can't think of anything better for them to do, to be honest. So, my opponent, after thinking about it for some time, makes the decision to deploy the Ironclad Drake directly opposite the Knights, which is fine. The Ironclad Drake will completely delete the Knights, and he has heavily committed to the middle of the table now. So what this means is that I'm definitely going to win the left-hand flank with the Household Guards. Even if he brings in his Reg there, they'll just trash all of the initiates over time. On the right-hand flank, if he brings in his whole Reg, he might overwhelm the initiates there, but the thinking is that if the whole Reg is not in the center, theoretically I might be able to overwhelm both dragons and the Fireforged with my combination of like 4 or 5 things. I've got the Archangel, I've got my Knights, I've got the Men-at-Arms with the Caledburn, I've got 2 crossbows, I've got a Mage there, I've got quite a lot of muscle. So, it's still going to be a close game, but it's now looking very doable. All right, just marveling at the lovely paint job that he's done here. Just insane job with the airbrushing. It just gets me every time. All right, Archangel. Now, this position here shows a position I was considering with the Archangel where he charges the objective and damages it a little bit, and then next turn he can destroy it and charge the Fireforge. After thinking about that for a while, I decided to take it back. I realized that my one win condition this game is just to minimize the damage from his Warlord. So after thinking about that, I decided against it and decided to just wheel over here. You've got so much speed with that Archangel because he's always giving himself the aura of divine purpose. So you move 9, you move 7, he's getting 16 inches of movement every single time. So even though the Knights have already been positioned in such a way that they're purpose is to tie up the Warlord's regiment, I'm bringing the Archangel into the same position because I just want a little bit of redundancy there to ensure that we've got something going after that Warlord just to tie it up. The Archangel is tough enough that it's not going to go down immediately from one round of Sorcerer plus Hellbringer. The thing is, if he goes into me with both Drakes and both spells, yes, maybe I could lose the Archangel, which won't be great, and then I've got the Knights as a secondary wave to leave him there, but by then a couple of turns will have passed, and I probably will have pulled ahead on scoring on the left and the right, and after a couple of turns I may well have broken through the Fireforged in the center with the Caledburn Lord, and if he can get into combat with the Drake, that actually is very, very useful, and all the while I'll have, crossbow bolts shooting at the Drakes as well. So this is the general idea of it. The final deployment here from my opponent is the Hold Rag, and he's deciding to commit to the left-hand flank, which is not a bad idea because what it means is that he now has the muscle to clear out the Squires and go after the Theist priest. And if he does that, he's scoring on this flank for the rest of the game, and I've got my household guards committed to the other flank, wiping out his other initiates. But then if he can bust through the center of the table with his Warlord, he will win. So this flank is quite crucial. If he can just break through here and just overcome the Militia with unit of initiates, then it is achievable. All right, so this is pretty significant. And on the left-hand side, my opponent didn't bring his initiates in range, which is, a smart thing to do. The Household Guard just double march here, so they're going to be in range next turn. Unfortunately, I don't outscore him because Rancor increases the number of stands counting for scoring in his regiment, so just wasn't able to pull that one out. But my opponent going for the free charge, where he just sends his boys in. Of course, doesn't do much damage here because Armor Dominion, I've got Defense 3, rerolling 6s, and I've got a big Resolve bonus here, and I've got plenty of guys there, and after this happens, the Mage is able to heal some of the boys up, so we're not too worried. So at the end of turn 4, we're going into the critical turn 5 in a situation where my opponent will have the advantage, but on the left, the Household Guards are easily going to beat the Initiates. In the middle, it's going to be a real contest of how well the interaction between the Archangel and the two dragons can be managed. Can he get a lot of value, or can I shut him down and sort of deny opportunities? And on the right-hand side, can the Hold Rag outpace or out-tempo the Theist Priest in terms of positioning and having that crucial fight happen at the right time? The Fireforged right at the back there in the corner, they will be very effective against the Militia if they can shoot into the Militia while they're fighting against the Initiates, but then they're going to be terrible against the Squires, so he's got to get rid of them first. Very interesting game situation from here on out. So, Archangel is going first. We definitely want to march charge him into the, just charge clash, that is, into the Warlord's unit. That's going to strip some of the elemental potency tokens, and it's going to prevent him from casting spells onto other stuff. That's critical. It's got to go first. Second card is the Men-at-Arms, because we're going to charge the Men-at-Arms with Caledburn into the Fireforged. If I just go back a card here, you can see where they are. Right in the middle of the table there. They're going to go straight into the Fireforged and just going to beat them up with Caledburn, and that may be tempting for him to get the Drake in there to help them, but then the Drake's not going to be helping out against the Archangel, and I can try and split his 3 regiments there in such a way that it's unfavorable for him, so they have to go second. And then we've got, I think, the Squires after that, followed by the Knights, if I recall correctly. Militia are going last because this is going to be the Supremacy turn, and I want to keep the Hold Rag away from me for now and threaten to just bash him up this turn if he comes close with Elysian Fragment. So another zoomed out photo from left to right. You can see the Household Guard against the Initiates, the Drakes in the middle against the Archangel, and the Rag versus Priest showdown on the far right. Okay, first card goes to my opponent, and he decides to pick the Hellbringer Drake as the first card, and decides not to move it either, which is really interesting. His thinking is that this is going to be the last opportunity for him to shoot, because he's going to get tied up in combat if he doesn't do that. So he simply uses the Archangel, sorry, the guns to fire it like the Archangel and strip a bunch of wounds off of it, which is understandable, but it's just not what I would have done. I think that positioning is just so critical in this turn that what you want to be doing with your first activation is just changing the layout of the battlefield somehow. So maybe just double marching back so that if I attack with the Archangel, his Hellbringer Drake can pick off the Archangel first and then free up the Warlord for blowing up the Knights, or just something like that. Maybe moving the Fireforged back, or repositioning with the Rag, or just something to that effect. But uses it for an attack which doesn't do critical damage, so that allows me to get my positioning happening. So you can see here the Archangel, beautiful shot of it here, just facing down the Tempered Sorcerer in combat. And now I'm going through a forest here, so the monster doesn't inflict that much damage. He's also got elemental potency tokens which you can spend. But critically, when the Sorcerer activates, its only target is going to be that Archangel, and it's got a bit of defense there. It's got good resolve. It's not going to take a lot of damage from the spell. So another beautiful photo here of the Tempered Sorcerer. Buddy just does such a great job with the painting. Unbelievable. And of course, another close-up look at your boy. Now, because my opponent has gone off and activated something else at this point, it comes back to me, and I activate the Men-at-Arms who make a charge. This is not a guaranteed charge. What actually ended up happening earlier in this game is I got a double one with one of my regiments. In fact, it may have been the Household Guard trying to charge the Initiates in the previous turn. Either way, these guys did not roll a double one. They did get in close combat with the Fireforged, and of course, Caledburn goes to work here. We've got 8 dice, causing AP1 rerolls, and my opponent has to burn a whole wad of tokens to stop that from battering his unit to death. So now my opponent's going to the rest of the turn with very few elemental potency tokens. Of course, the Fireforged attacking back, not able to get a lot done, though, against the boys with Hardened and what have you, the reroll 6s, all of the good stuff. Over here, this is a crucial play because the Theist Priest's Supremacy is in play for this turn, meaning that the guys that I just talked about, that's the Men-at-Arms, they have Blessed, and the Household Guard have Blessed, and the Militia have Blessed. The Squires, I think they've got Blessed. They should do, because Heavenly Blessing just affects that regiment, and all other Theist regiments get it. So what happens here is the Squires attack the last standard of dwarves here, Dweghom, without using Inspired, because it's Clash 2 with rerolls from Blessed, so they kill the Ballistae, and then critically they move backwards to the position you see in this photo. And the crucial thing about this is that it blocks anything from touching the zone, gives me another turn of scoring. It also kind of blocks the Militia from the Fireforged, that the Fireforged shoot at the Squires again, Tenacious 2 will kick in. But if the Initiates attack the Squires now, the Priest is going to be in auto-charge range. If they had moved forward, then the distance between the Militia in this photo against the Initiates in this photo is just not a guaranteed charge. So this entices my opponent to come forward with the Initiates and maybe even kill the Squires. If they do that, then I've got a charge this turn with Elysian Fragment and Blessed. But if he leaves it for another turn, then I would have to use Elysian Fragment without Blessed, and there's a possibility he may attack me before I attack him, doing a lot of damage to Militia and probably winning them in this flank of the battlefield. So we do have the Fireforged moving up, and we do have them shooting at the Squires, but yet again, Tenacious 2 stopping this from being a thing. They're all shooting at volley 2. Most of their shots missing, and then I'm saving on ones, but I block 2 of them, and just not enough damage is done here by the Fireforged. Very ineffectual regiment for this game because they're up against such a powerful anti-shooting mechanic. Over here, the selfless play, the Valiant Knights deciding that they are going to take one for the team, and they are marching all the way past the Hellbringer Drake, and you can see there's a bit of a gap between my Archangel and his Hellbringer, but that's just because the models don't fit together physically, so they are in combat. But this play is designed to do one thing, and one thing only. That is to sacrifice the knights into the Ironclad Drake so that the Ironclad Drake is not attacking my Archangel this turn, or my men-at-arms this turn, meaning that it buys me an entire additional turn of those two other units attacking their targets, slowing things down, and buying more time elsewhere on the battlefield for other things to kick in. The Household Guard can sweep around the flank, the Mage gets more time to heal things, the Crossbowmen can shoot into whatever unit they need to. It's just a necessary evil at this point, and even though the Knights have no chance whatsoever, I just couldn't think of a better play for them than this. It really is the right thing to do sometimes, just to give away a unit at exactly the right time, because if your opponent does something one turn too slowly in the mid-game, that can be the difference between winning and losing, and that's something that you probably need to start understanding if you want to level up your game. I think it's critically important. So over here we have the Fireforged and the Men-at-Arms continuing to duel it out, more characters being played, spells being cast, and over here it feels so good. It just feels so good to attack with that many Hellbirds. They are cleave 1, and you just pick up this massive handful of dice. Like, you have to bring in the dump truck to carry the number of dice, and then you just roll them all, and you're like, oh, there's 7 or 8 sixes, re-roll all of those, and then your opponent takes 30 saves or whatever it is, 25, and this regiment did 20 wounds worth of damage, which felt amazing. So this is the result. He's left there with 1 stand of initiates, which has got 2 or 3 wounds left, and they're broken, and he's got the character there. So they will die next turn, but they held out for this time, and we go on. Over here, the crossbows have taken some damage. I've lost 1 stand, but now they shoot at the objective and kill it, which allows me to potentially score in the mid-game if I can clear that out. On this side, the Hellbringer Drake, no surprises here, charges directly into the Knights, inflicts impacts, inflicts much clashing, and inflicts morale checks, and the Knights are simply deleted. No surprises there whatsoever. Okay, this is probably the turning point in the game, really, the critical play. My opponent decides to charge the Squires with the Initiates and clash them, knowing full well that I have my supremacy up for the Theist Priest. The Theist Priest and the Militia have not activated yet this turn. I have Elysian Fragment available. I said all of this to him, and I said, are you sure you want to do that? Because I think that this is giving me an opportunity just to charge your Initiates. And he felt that if he doesn't clear out the Squires, he's going to have no better opportunity to get the jump on the Initiates later. Sorry, on the Militia later. I think that the best play that he could have made here is to charge but not clash, because that means that over the next couple of turns, he can keep moving up with a Fireforged, shoot at the Militia, reduce them to a much lower model count, and activate the Initiates as one of his later cards in the stack, kill the Squires, and then get to a point where it's his Initiates against a depleted Militia unit, and maybe overpower them, or at least get into a spot where even if he loses the Initiates, the Fireforged can then finish off the last of the Militia by shooting them. And if he moves on to that zone with 1 or 2 stands of Fireforged, that means he's scoring at the end of the game and will win. But this play doesn't really work for getting the win, because it allows me to fight back with a Militia right after this, because the Squires just die here, and then it creates a gap. Over here, we're doing a double march with the Mage, just to march behind the forest. Originally, before the game started, we agreed that you cannot see through the forest unless you're touching it. So if my unit's on this side, yours is on the other side, we can't draw a line of sight through the forest, and nobody's touching the forest, there's no visibility. We changed our minds about this later on in the game, where it's like, can the Sorcerer see over the forest? Well, maybe he can because of the monster size 3, but we'll get to that later. But the plan here really is just to move in, heal some of the Household Guard with the Mage, and then the point is to get the Household Guard around the flank, around that building, after they've disposed of the last of the Initiates, move off the objective, charge the Hellbringer in the back, and the Mage can be the unit scoring because there's 4 stands there. So even though she's light, she can do the scoring there, and that's just the critical end game play, and one of the reasons why I like the Water Mage. So over here, we have the situation where the Militia have Elysian Fragment, they are Cleave 3, they have Blessed, they have Inspired from charging. So you're talking about, what is that, 12, 17 attacks from the front, plus another 9 from the back. So 26 attacks on 3s, re-rolling misses, and then it's Cleave 3, saving on 1s. This is just not what you want as the Dweghom play here, and the Initiates get absolutely crushed. That results in the photo here where the situation for me is that I've lost the Squires, the Militia are completely intact, he does have a full unit of Fireforged, which will do damage to the Militia, but there's not that many of them, and I'm very close to the position of the Militia, and I'm scoring on the right-hand flank. On the left-hand flank, the Household Guard have broken through the other Initiates, well they will next turn, and in the middle of the table, although I've lost my Knights, he's going to have a situation where he has to sort of, focus the dragons on the Archangel. My men-at-arms are going to beat up the rest of his Fireforged shortly, and I still have both units of crossbows left alive, so it's just swinging in my favor at this point in time. There's the view of the left-hand battlefield where you can sort of see where the Mage is going to be going. She's going to take the place of the Household Guards, and if the Household Guards ever make it into contact with one of those dragons, that is just completely a game winner there. So we're going Archangel first because the Archangel's about to get charged and killed by his Ironclad, and then we're going into the Priest and the Militia so that they can get the jump on those Fireforged. Even leaving the objective, so long as we deal with them, we can come back to the objective later. So Archangel into the Drake here, doing some more damage to it, but of course not killing it. We just want to buy time. We want to soften him up. We want to make him use those tokens. Then we have the Hellbringer charging into the flank, well not the flank, just charging into combat with the Archangel, and this is enough to destroy it. Archangel is down. The Militia go for a slightly lengthy charge, needing like a 3 or a 4 on a d6 with a reroll, and they do make it into the boys here. They do not have Elysian Fragment anymore, so going much more slowly against the Fireforged, but I do have Holy Fire as well to speed things up. For some reason, Fireforged, not immune to fire. Who knew? But it's a thing. Now, over this side, this is the point in the game, I think, where, I kind of wanted to give my opponent the benefit of the doubt here, and we talked about whether the Hellbringer can see the Mage's unit to cast spells, and we just decided to rule that he can. I don't know if this is legit, but I think if you're size 3 and the Forest is size 2, and there's a size 1 on the other side, you can shoot over. I just couldn't be bothered looking it up, so we just said that we could do that. So this photo just represents the Mage getting wiped out. Now I can no longer heal the Halberdiers, and the Halberdiers have to stay on that zone for the rest of the game unless they want to leave it to attack the Drake, but it's okay. Just wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt on that play. But it sort of just illustrates why I, sacrifice so much delaying that Warlord, because it's the one thing in his army that can just run away with the game, which is the constant fireballs and the guns and all of that nastiness. Over here, we also have the men-at-arms continuing to beat down on these Fireforged and really doing a good job of it. They just continue to pile on the attacks, and we've got the Noble Lord there with Caledburn. Over here, we have the dragon moving forward so it can continue shooting its big old guns. So the Sorcerer is activated, then the dragon activates, it moves up, tries to get a bead onto these mercenaries over here. And what we're doing now is that after the Initiates have been wiped out by the Halberdiers, we can reform them into this little 2-wide, 4-deep line. And the thinking is that the 90-degree arc here, the 45er, the edge of that unit can see through the forest at the Hellbringer Drake. So what we're doing is we're threatening to charge them through that forest with a massive wheel, with the back of the unit dragging around in like a wide arc to get into combat. Because if these guys touch down on that monster, then it's just lights out. They'll kill it, and they'll kill the Ironclad next turn, and it'll just be all over. So trying to set that up whilst still picking up points from that zone. Over here, we have the Fireforged being whittled down now, and the Mage also casting spells onto them, so this is going to be a win for the Militia, and they're going to be able to score the other zone perpetually for the rest of the game. Over here, we have a few crossbows, just picking off some more wounds on that same regiment that's under attack by the Men-at-Arms and his leader. So this zoomed out photo shows you the result of that. Thanks to the additional support of the crossbows, the Men-at-Arms have now disposed of the Fireforged there. The Militia are about to finish off the Fireforged on the other side. He's just really got the 2 dragons left, and that is it. So this is the left-hand view. Of course, the dragons just have to avoid the household guard. So we're going to go with the household guard first. Then we're going to go with the Theist and the Militia to finish off the Fireforged in this next turn. So my opponent activating straight away to back up with the Hellbringer. You can see here that red card shows like a 45-degree angle line of sight. So he's just backing out of line of sight of it to avoid getting charge clashed this turn from the Hellbringer, right? And we've also got the Ironclad just sitting there, just a closer photo of the paint job, essentially. Now, I decided to be a bit cheeky here, and seeing that he decided to back up as far as he could, the Household Guard have completely wheeled around and found another line of sight around the other side of the building. Because the unit is so massive, the reform allows you to basically just get around in range, find an angle to the back of its base. So long as you can slip past the building without touching it, they hit the back of its base. This is not a charge clash, it is a reform charge. But now that the Mage is locked in place, or the Sorcerer is locked in place, and that is pretty much game. So there he is, just feeling a little bit hot-headed. Over here, the Priest casts Holy Fire again into the Fireforged, deleting them, and then with the action of the Militia, we reform and then turn around, getting back onto the objective in one swift movement, allowing them to score there for the rest of the game. And he's got an Ironclad, trying to beat down this objective in the center, getting a few points. And obviously sitting on this zone here, it's going to be difficult for me to remove him from that zone with just the crossbows and the Men-at-Arms, but that's the only zone that he's going to be able to have. So these guys peppering him with a few little shots here, and the Men-at-Arms charging in with Caledburn into the flank, for all it's worth, just waiting until the Household Guard catch up. And that's pretty much game. That's where we've called it. So this is a pretty convincing win to the 100 Kingdoms. I do feel that it could have gone differently, but as with a lot of these games, it just comes to very careful decision-making around about turn 3 and 4 about where you put your last 3 regiments. You don't want to ever overcommit to one side, and you want to make sure that the troops you have committed to each sort of portion of the battlefield are going to perform against what's already there. The timing with the Rag against the Militia was also a bit of a problem. I think that the Militia may still have beaten their way through regardless, but it would have been close. What could potentially have happened is that the Militia gets stuck fighting the Rag for like 2 or 3 turns, and the Fireforged get 1 or 2 turns of shooting at them at close range, and that would have made the difference. And then you can see in the bottom right of this photo, the Fireforged would have been down here. Armor of Dominion, though, very cool item and certainly very helpful in this matchup, 100 Kingdoms, so definitely liking it for the Halberdiers. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Stay tuned for some other stuff, maybe coming in with some more with Druin Bat reps, we'll see. But for now, have a good time.